Jack Morgan had spent his life fighting limits, pain, fear, weakness. A former Navy SEAL, he believed that will could conquer anything. But that morning, high in the Rockies, the mountain decided otherwise. Rain fell before dawn, thin drops that turned into a steady, freezing curtain. Jack smiled at the storm. If you can climb when the world turns against you, he used to say, nothing else can stop you. So he climbed, bare-handed, alone, his breath steady, his heartbeat matching the rhythm of the rain. Then, in the corner of his vision, a flicker of motion. A cobra, coiled and waiting. It made no sense, there shouldn't have been snakes here. But instinct doesn't wait for logic. He flinched, and the world inverted. Wind roared, stone shattered, then, silence. When he opened his eyes, the sky was gray. Rain poured harder. Pain shot through his spine like lightning. He tried to move, but his legs didn't answer. The world tilted again, not from height this time, but from fear, not far, yet somehow distant. His backpack lay in the rain, dark, soaked, lifeless. In normal times, he could have reached it in a minute or two. Now, it looked impossibly far. Come on, Morgan, he whispered. He dropped to his stomach and began to crawl. Elbows scraping stone, palms sliding on slick rock. Every inch forward was war. There was no mission now, no enemy, no glory. Only survival. The rain blurred his sight. His arms trembled, and every breath came like a countdown. He slipped, again and again, each time losing what little ground he had gained. The mountain seemed to reject him, pushing him down with every inch. But he kept moving. One pull, one breath, one heartbeat, then another. The rhythm of survival. Hours blurred, light faded, the storm softened into mist. He no longer knew if he was moving, or simply refusing to stop. And then, his hand touched something rough. Fabric. His backpack. He reached for it, missed, reached again. Pain flared through his back. But he ignored it. Finally, his fingers locked on the strap. Got it, he breathed. A whisper of victory. Proof that he was still alive. He lay there, rain soaking through his clothes. The backpack pressed to his chest. Thunder rolled above, like distant applause. Jack closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know if he had won, or simply survived. The rain hadn't stopped. It fell in thin silver lines, each drop echoing in Jack's ears like a reminder that time was still moving with or without him. He lay beside the backpack, breath shallow, hands shaking. Every part of his body screamed for rest, but something inside him whispered louder, move. He dragged the bag closer and unzipped it with trembling fingers. He knew there was nothing special in it, some rations, bandages, tools. Still, he had to do something. Anything. He couldn't just wait for the mountain to bury him. Inside were soaked bandages, half a protein bar, a flashlight that flickered once and died. He sighed, ready to give up. Then his hand brushed against something small and metallic at the bottom. A silver object, smooth and cold. He frowned. What the hell? He lifted it closer. A portable battery. For a moment, it made no sense. He hadn't packed it. He never carried extras. Why was it here? And then, like a sudden beam of memory, her voice came back. Dad, even if I give you this, you won't use it. You trust yourself too much. Emma, his daughter. She had said that with a grin, shoving the little box toward him. Before his last trip, he'd laughed and waved her off. Sweetheart, I've been through worse with nothing but a knife and a radio. She'd rolled her eyes. That's exactly what I mean. He hadn't realized then what she had done. Somewhere before he left, she had slipped the battery into his backpack quietly, deliberately. He could almost see her doing it, smiling to herself, whispering, he'll need it someday. Now, drenched and broken on the mountain, Jack understood. She had known. She'd seen through him, his pride, his certainty, his faith in control. And she'd saved him despite it. He felt his throat tighten. Emma, he whispered, his voice cracked in the wind. He pulled the phone from a side pocket, wiped the screen, and pressed the power button. The display flickered faintly, drained from the fall and the cold. Just one more time, he muttered. He plugged the cord into the battery and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then a flicker. A faint white light bloomed on the screen. Weak, trembling, but alive. Jack laughed, a hoarse sound that was half relief, half disbelief. The rain reflected off the tiny glow, scattering it across the stone. In that moment, the light felt enormous, not because it was bright, but because it was his daughter's. A spark of her care, her stubbornness, her love, reaching him across the miles. He leaned his head back against the rock, breathing hard. The battery's light pulsed once, steady now, as if alive. He could almost hear her voice again. See, Dad? You don't always have to be the strong one. He smiled weakly. Guess you're right, kid. The phone buzzed once, the faint hum of a signal searching for connection. A miracle, maybe. He didn't know, but for the first time since the fall, Jack felt warmth. Not from his body, but from hope. He looked at the light, small and steady in the storm. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The night had swallowed the mountain. Rain eased into a fine mist, and the world became still again. Jack sat motionless against the rocks, the faint glow from the phone barely touching his face. The light was weak, trembling, but it refused to die. He lifted it closer, watching the screen pulse. Emma, he whispered, his breath visible in the cold. Now I understand. He smiled faintly. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel invincible. He felt human, small, fragile, and deeply grateful. He leaned his head back, eyes half closed, the phone still in his hand. The light flickered once, twice, and sent one last signal. Somewhere in the void, a thread of data escaped into the storm. Jack didn't notice. He was already drifting between exhaustion and peace. Around that time, a rescue team picked up a strange ping on their scanners. A faint emergency signal, old, fragmented, but constant. They followed the coordinates through the rain-soaked ridge, down a slope where the rocks were still slick from days of weather. At the bottom, they found a man lying against the stone. Drenched, but breathing. Jack Morgan was alive. In his hands were the phone and the portable battery, still connected. The rescuers didn't understand how the signal had lasted that long. But Emma did. When he opened his eyes again, the ceiling was white. The smell of disinfectant replaced the scent of rain. Beside the bed sat his daughter, eyes red, hand wrapped around his. Dad. Her voice trembled. We caught your signal. It was almost gone, but I knew it was you. Jack tried to speak, but his throat burned. He managed a weak smile. Guess your old man's still hard to kill. She laughed through her tears. No, Dad, you're just lucky I packed your pride insurance. He frowned softly. My what? She pointed to the small silver battery resting on the nightstand. That. You didn't take it, so I hid it in your backpack. Jack stared at it, the same faint glow still breathing in its corner. The weight of the moment pressed against him. All the missions he had survived. All the wars. All the battles he thought he'd won. None had meant as much as this. He turned to his daughter. Emma, I spent my whole life trusting strength. Training it, testing it, worshipping it. But out there it wasn't strength that saved me. His voice cracked. It was you. She wiped her tears. You don't have to be the strongest, Dad. Just come home. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I finally get that. The morning light filtered through the window, warm and golden. The hospital was quiet except for the steady beep of his monitor. Jack glanced at the battery once more, its indicator still glowing. That light may have faded, but the promise it carried still burns inside me. Since that day, Jack Morgan never forgets. Wherever he goes, on hikes, on trips, even short drives, he always carries a portable battery in his backpack. Not out of fear but remembrance. Because to him, it's not just a battery. It's a reminder that sometimes the smallest light can outshine the darkest night.